Hey, this is Jim Larsen, and welcome to the Focus Initiative podcast, where our goal is simple. Let's get better together every single day. Each week, I'll offer real practical advice and rockstar interviews for everyday people to empower them to stop mindlessly drifting through life and start taking ownership of every awesome thing. And we can't do that if we're not focused. This is the Focus Initiative. Hey, welcome to the Focus Initiative, a new podcast by me, Jim Larsen, designed specifically to offer practical, real-life advice to everyday people who simply feel stuck or like they're just kind of floating through life, checking off boxes on their to-do lists or running hamster wheels that never seem to get them anywhere. And you know the fun thing about firsts is that you can only go up from here, right? If you're good at something the first time you do it, it's because you probably waited too long to do it. Firsts are about experimenting, being brave, putting yourself out there, falling over, messing up, learning, getting back up again. So this is my first podcast, the literal and absolute first one. I don't even expect that many people will hear this. By the time people know my name, who knows where it'll be? Podcast 67, episode 198, who knows? What I do know is that I'm honored you're checking this out and we're going to have a kick-ass time together. You know, I see and I know so many people who, kind of like good soldiers, have just marched to the next thing expected of them or floated from one day to the next over and over in their lives until, if they're lucky, they wake up one day and they're like, holy crap, man, this is not the life I would have chosen for myself. This is not the job I dreamed of. This is not the body I want. These are not the life-giving relationships I expected to have around me. And then what? And then, because they woke up to an awareness for the first time, realizing that they haven't ever truly felt alive, they go make up for lost time by running to Mexico and having like 3 affairs or buying that convertible they can't afford because it makes them finally feel something. It's so prevalent in our culture, in fact, that we even have a name for it. We call it a midlife crisis. For real, how damning is that? We are so good at floating meaninglessly through life, unintentional, unfeeling, meaninglessly drifting, that when someone does finally wake up, it's almost expected that they're going to go run off and make up for lost time by making incredibly irresponsible decisions that might have long-lasting repercussions. And it's funny, I actually even call those the lucky ones. See, the unlucky ones, they never wake up at all. They drift and float and march like good soldiers right into their grave and never once wake up to even ask the question, man, is this really what I want? The Focus Initiative podcast is designed to help you ask that question. It's designed to help you wake up responsibly so that you can determine what you want from life, get over the crap that's holding you back, and then set an intentional plan to go get it. Ultimately, so you don't need to fall into the midlife crisis trap just trying to find meaning. Often that great awakening occurs in a single moment in our lives when we feel utterly let down by the status quo. See, often when we're kids, what do? We do what our parents tell us. And then we go to school and we do what our teachers say. Some of us play sports or we go on to do what our coaches instruct, and we bust our butts so we can get into college where we do what the syllabus tells us, which positions us to go out and get a job, or we do what our bosses tell us. And then we get married, which comes with a host of expectations, and we move on to have kids, and well, holy crap, we do anything to try and give them a happy life. And never once do we stop and ask, but wait, is this what I want? We're conditioned and programmed to simply take the next step and do the next thing that's expected of us, and as long as it doesn't hurt us, we don't question it. You'll commit to investing in your 401k and IRA because standard wisdom tells you to, until the market crashes right before retirement and you wake up and say, whoa, that was crap, and that great awakening prompts you to start looking at alternatives. You'll commit to pursuing that college education that your parents and your grandparents dreamed for you until you graduate, saddled with debt, and walk into a job market that isn't prepared to offer you a livable wage. Or worse, they'll offer you a barely livable wage, so you can't leave because it's paying your bills, but you can't get ahead either. You'll commit to being exclusive with that guy and moving in together and thinking about getting married until he cheats or hurts you or mismanages the finances so bad you no longer trust him to deliver the life you want. We're sold a narrative of what the normal or perfect life looks like, and we pursue it often mindlessly until it burns us. And often it's that burn that is the catalyst to wake us up. A lot of us, though, we never get burned, so we never wake up. But just because we're not burned doesn't mean we're happy. Just because the status quo hasn't screwed us doesn't mean it's delivered the meaning and the joy and the purpose and the passion and the security that we were promised it would. And so we drift and we float, not quite uncomfortable enough to pursue change, but not comfortable enough to be satisfied either. And then we settle for this forced contentment and resign ourselves to a meaningless, passionless reality. Man, wake up. Waking up starts by allowing yourself to feel the desire planted deep in your heart, to feel that pain and the letdown that subscribing to the status quo has cultivated. 15 years ago after college, I walked into my first real job. You know, that kind that offers a steady salary and benefits. I had bartended and waited tables for years through high school and college, and this was my first real job, managing a casual dining restaurant chain, which was comfortable for me because of the years I'd spent in the restaurant industry. The job pushed me to 60 and easily up to 80 hours of work per week, and these were not billable hours. This was salary work, which was supposed to offer security because you always knew what you were going to make, but I learned it was a marketing scam employers used to drive their people without added labor cost. That job required evenings, weekends, holidays, calls on my day off, coming in early, staying late, and I did it. In fact, I did it with a great attitude because I was supposed to be grateful. After all, this was a real job. After a year with the company, I earned 2 weeks of paid vacation, which was a novelty to me then. The idea that I could actually still get paid even though I didn't do any work. It sounded crazy cool. So when I went to my boss and I asked to use that vacation time, he declined the request because we were busy. Turns out restaurants are always busy, which just means that they've got their labor costs down to a science of ensuring there's not a single extra body on payroll to cover someone's vacation request. I asked the regional manager to approve my request, and his answer was a very stern, "Jim, we own you." Well, that burn woke me up. My wife was a nurse. She made more money than me and only worked 3 days a week. I told her I might want to be a nurse. She laughed at the time. But the pain point of selling myself to the restaurant chain is what woke me up to start looking at other options. I quit the restaurant job and pursued a second bachelor's degree, this time in history with the thought that I'd be a history teacher. I didn't do any of the education courses, just the history, again with that thought that I'd spend 2 more years and simply get my master's in education. But I had friends that were teachers. They did everything right, but they couldn't find work. They were all bartending, subbing part-time, trying to get their foot in the door with various boards of ed. And I thought, man, we've got a family. I can't go 2 more years and still come out the other end without a job. Burned. Waking up even more. I had already decided to do 2 more years of school, but what industry was guaranteed to employ me after that? Nursing. They were always looking for people. And I remember thinking, man, I might hate being a nurse like my wife says, but they only work 3 days a week. I can do anything for 3 days a week. Turns out I loved being a nurse. I specialized in cardiac surgery ICU care and really truly loved it, except while it scratched several itches professionally, it was hurting my family emotionally. See, my wife was also a nurse, and we alternated night shifts with one of us home and one of us at the hospital. Often we'd go 8 days in a row without any interaction other than stealing a goodbye kiss as we ran out the door. And, you know, we're kind of that couple that don't just love each other like married couples are supposed to. We actually and genuinely like each other. In fact, the more time we spend together, the better we get along. But the opposite there is also true. The longer we're apart, the more we get petty and argumentative and resentful. And stacking a few years of this scheduling together, our marriage got to this breaking point. We were emotionally exhausted. We were financially just treading water, getting by but never getting ahead. And I'll never forget the fall of 2013. We were coming up on the holiday schedule and we were each required to work a major holiday. For night shift nurses like us, this meant working the night leading into the holiday, as well as working the night of the holiday, so that the people who are off could totally be off. And I get that because when I'm off, I super appreciate it. But we didn't have family around to help with childcare. So what were our options? Should we both work Thanksgiving and try to pawn all three of our young kids off on a neighbor for a holiday? Like, how do you even ask that question? They're entertaining their own family. Like, how do you do that? Or should one of us work Thanksgiving and one of us work Christmas, and we'll just sort of agree to never have a holiday together as a family, like ever, like for the rest of our lives? Again, that burned us. Wake up. You don't have to know what you want yet. You don't have to know your purpose or your passion. You don't have to know how you're going to get out of your present situation. All that's going to come in later episodes. All you need right now is to wake up. Take inventory. Allow yourself to feel. Ask the question, is this what I really want? And then subscribe to this podcast so we can take the journey together. So this doesn't need to be the only place we hang out. You can follow me on Facebook or Instagram at Meet Jim Larsen. You just have to spell my last name right. That's Larsen. My blog and my live events are always up on my website, meetjimlarsen.com. Again, that's Larsen with an E, which apparently is super hard for people to remember. Until next week, friends, let's go kick ass.